Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to the Reading Through the Bible series. Today we will be talking about 2 Kings. So starting off, 2 Kings was written by Jeremiah. This makes a lot of sense because 1 Kings was also written by Jeremiah. And then for my main takeaways from the book, I wrote that Elijah was taken to heaven and Elisha is succeeding Elijah, which happens in chapter 2. Elisha and the widow's oil miracle, paying off all her debts, is in chapter 4. Different people ruling over Judah and Israel. These are chapters 8 through 18. Elisha dies. This happens in chapter 13. Hezekiah's prayer, which is in chapter 19. I also wrote that more chapters about who is ruling over Judah and Israel happens. And then finally, I wrote that the book ends with fall and captivity of Judah. And then for my didn't know / didn't realize section, I have 4 takeaways for this one. The first one I wrote that Elijah kept being told, "Do you know the Lord is going to take away Elijah from you today?" And his response to all of them was, "Yes, I know, be quiet." This was in chapter 2. I am saying all of these notes in today's video from notes that I've written a year ago. So I personally, current day today, Sarah does not remember that. I just want to reread chapter 2 real quick. I do think that is an interesting response. I don't know why he would respond that way. I have Googled questions that I've had in the past, and as I've said in past videos, it's a way to find answers to questions that you have about the Bible. Is it the best way? Is it the most theologically sound way? You know, I think it's just the most accessible way for people, so I'm gonna really quick Google why his response was, "Yes, I know, keep quiet." Google's immediate answer says, Elijah responded, "Yes, I know, keep quiet," to the angel because he understood that the angel was revealing a significant event about his imminent ascension to heaven, and he didn't need to say anything further. The situation was already clear, and the focus should be on the divine act taking place. Yeah, I think this section is very interesting to me even now, just rereading it and trying to learn more about it. And I think it's important to reiterate real quick that Elijah is the one who is being taken to heaven shortly here in the book of 2 Kings. And Elisha is the one who has the response of, "Yes, I know, be quiet." Just because the two names are so similar, I had to reread this a couple times to make sure I have clarity on which one is being taken to heaven and which one is speaking right now. So Elisha is coming from a place of having the knowledge and the clarity that this is about to happen to a real life human that he knows and loves and learns from when it comes to being a prophet, to ministering to people about God's word. And I think that response is really interesting. I don't know that it gives us much more explanation as to why his response was that way. I feel like I like the idea that Google's immediate response was that the focus should not be on me. I mean, for one thing, it's not happening necessarily directly to Elisha. The person it's happening to is Elijah, and yes, that event will impact Elisha, but like, let's keep the focus on the event and not on me. So I think I like that one way of thinking. I feel like another way of thinking, and this one could be wrong, is that maybe he just had confidence in God's plan and that he wasn't trying to pour his fear and time and worry into it. Instead, he knew that this event would be happening. And I think also just the phrasing of the question being asked to him, that the Lord's going to take away his master from you, is interesting because God is obviously supposed to be our ultimate master. So I think that might have been another route in why he responded in the way that he did, is just the confidence in his heavenly Lord and master that he has the plan and that he knows what will happen from it all. So yeah, just a really interesting takeaway from 2 Kings. The second one makes me laugh given the way that I just talked about the first one, but the second one that I wrote says that some boys were taunting Elisha, calling him names bald head, and Elisha cursed them in chapter 2. Yeah, this happens at the end of chapter 2. It's verses 23 through 25. That is really interesting. Elisha was not one to be messed around with, that's for sure. The third takeaway I took from this book comes from chapter 6. I wrote that I don't think I've ever heard the story of Elisha rescuing the man's borrowed axe from the river before. Yeah, I just reread that now. It is the first part of chapter 6 in 2 Kings, and I'd argue this is a miracle that God had happen through Elisha, and I feel like this is one we don't hear about often. Essentially, Elisha asked, where did this borrowed axe head fall into the water, and he threw a stick into the middle of it and it made the iron float, which obviously that is a miracle because how else could that have happened? And that is just such a niche one that I don't think I've really ever heard of before, so that's really cool to read about. And then my fourth takeaway from this book, I wrote that one of the people who reigned over Judah, Jehoash, was 7 years old when he started, and he reigned for 40 years. This was in chapter 12. Yeah, I know rulers starting at a young age happened more regularly during those times than it did now, just for different circumstances. But 7 years old is crazy, and then he continued to do it for 40 years, which is also crazy. And then finally, for my favorite verse, I wrote 2 Kings chapter 20, verse 3 was my favorite verse, which reads, "Now, O Lord, please remember how I have walked before you in faithfulness and with a whole heart, and have done what is good in your sight." And Hezekiah wept bitterly. This was a prayer from Hezekiah, who at this point in the book was dealing with a sickness that could have led to his death. And what he did was turn to the Lord and pray that simple prayer. And I just think it was a very powerful verse, and I'm glad that I wrote it down so I could reread it today. And I think that's a really good way to try to walk and lead in your faith and live your life, is to keep God at the forefront of it all. So I feel like that's a really good verse to end this on. So yeah, those are my takeaways from 2 Kings. As always, everything is being added to a playlist on my channel, which is linked below, so if you have any interest in seeing my other videos on different books from the Bible, please feel free to check that out. And as always, I hope you guys are having a good day, and if you're not, that's okay too. I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!